We'll call to order the WTA Board of Directors meeting for Thursday, January 18th. Let's start with roll call, please.
Yes, and we will use our roll call today to also accomplish the seating of the 2024 board members. So I will read the names of the board members for this year for the record. And when your name is called, please unmute and answer here. So we have Whatcom County Executive Satpal Sidhu.
Here.
Oh, you muted. You muted. Vicky, you muted.
No,
Oh,
I am not, but I'll.
no, Vicky muted by accident.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Whatcom County Council Member Todd Donovan.
Here.
Mayor of Bellingham Ken Lund.
Here.
Bellingham City Council Member Michael Lillyquist, currently
Here.
absent. Oh,
Here.
great, thank you. Bellingham City Council Member Skip Williams.
Here.
Ferndale City Council Member Allie Hawkinson.
Here.
Mayor of Linden Scott Cortice.
Here.
Everson City Council Member and also representing Nooksack and Sumas, Jennifer Lautenbach.
Here.
Thank you. Blaine City Council Member Eric Davidson.
Here.
And our non-voting labor representative for the ATU is Dan Darwin. He is absent today, making himself available for operations. Thank you.
Michael, do you want to?
We have election of officers.
Yes, sorry. I am really having a hard time this morning. Yes,
Seems to be
so
a common theme.
as outgoing president, I will chair this portion of the meeting, and that first part is the board reorganization, the seating of the 2024 board members, election of officers, and other assignments, particularly to the WCOG or the COG. I'm sorry, I'm scrolling through. There's no agenda on this, is there?
It's
Okay,
under
well-
C1, election of officers, and there's a
There we go. There's the, thank you very much. Sorry for all this. Hey, so I will accept nominations from the floor for the WTA president for the year 2024.
I nominate Allie Hawkinson.
I nominate Scott Cortice.
Is there a second for nominating Scott? Hearing no second, we have only one
I'll
nomination.
second the nomination, Scott.
Wait a
Don't
minute.
do that.
I nominated Allie. So is there going to put two of them up then? Or that's fine, but
We currently have two nominations, you guys. Is there any further discussion? If not, I'm going to call for the vote. If there's no objection, in the order the people were nominated. Is there any objection?
could I comment?
Scott, go ahead.
I would like to see Allie as the president or the chair for the year. Allie and I have discussed this at length, and I'm already on too many chairs, too many everything, and it's good to pass this around, and I can support her in other ways. So I would prefer Allie. But you can vote for me if you want.
I'll withdraw my nomination.
It is out of order to withdraw a nomination once made and seconded. We have two nominations. If there's no
But he
objection,
could decline the nomination.
even if he declines, it's out of order. I'm serious, folks. This is how you did it to yourselves. We're going to vote in order of nomination. All those in favor of Allie Hawkinson, please signify. To make this really clear, let's just do a roll call vote. All those in favor of Allie Hawkinson as WTA president, roll call, please.
Yes, Davidson.
Yeah, yes.
Donovan.
Yes.
Hawkinson.
Yes.
Cortice.
Yes.
Lautenbach.
Yes.
Lillyquist.
Yes.
Lund.
Yes.
Sidhu.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes the electing of the officer. I will now turn the gavel over to Allie Hawkinson to conduct the rest of the agenda.
All right. Trying to find C1 now. I assume that we go on to vice chair.
Yes, vice chair, and then the representative to the Whatcom Transportation, the COG Transportation Policy Board, and an alternate to that board as well.
Okay, any nominations for vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Jennifer Lautenbach.
I'll second that.
All right. We have one nomination. Do we want to roll call vote this as well, I suppose? No? All right. All in favor of Jen Lautenbach being vice chair, please unmute and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right. Thank you, Jen. All right, next we will talk about the COG. Who I don't know who does this now. Is it Michael, right?
Michael is currently, and Ally, you're the alternate.
Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, we talked about this, you and I.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm already going to the COG meetings through another appointment. It's no difficulty for me to continue as COG representative. However, usually the president serves. So I'm offering to serve if that would be okay with you, Ally, if it fits your schedule better.
I am good with that.
Then I'll nominate Michael as our COG rep.
I'll
I'll second that.
All right, we have a nomination and a second. All in favor of Michael being the COG representative, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Excellent. And then do we have to vote on me being the backup, or is that?
We need a nomination and then.
Oh, okay.
Vote. Yeah, please.
I'm on a roll. I'll nominate Ally as our backup for the COG.
Second.
All right. Anyone else at all? No, just kidding. All right, all in favor of me, Ally Hogginson, being the backup for the COG, please unmute and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, we did it. Good job, Scott.
Well, you weren't at the COG yesterday where the wheels fell off the bus, but you did a fine job here.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to item D, we have former board member recognition. Holly Huffman and Seth Fleetwood, who I believe are here.
Yes. So thanks to Seth and Holly for being here. I'm disappointed that due to weather, we're doing this all virtually, but I'm missing an opportunity to celebrate you both in person. But on behalf of staff, before turning it over to the board, I just wanted to say thank you to you both for your leadership. You both put in a lot of time and energy and effort to help connect people to opportunities throughout this community, and your caring heart and leadership is very much appreciated by staff and those folks that benefit from your leadership in the community. So thank you. And with that, Ellie, I'll turn it back to you on the resolutions for each.
Oh, yes. All right. Sorry, you guys, I'm a little flustered this morning. It's also been a morning for me, not as bad as Scott's morning, but I'm looking for the
So first up, we have
numbers
resolution for Holly. Would
yes,
you?
347-24. That's what I was looking for.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so approval of resolution 347-24 recognizing Holly Huffman. Les?
Yes, so this is a resolution to acknowledge the exemplary public service by Holly, as detailed in the resolution.
So I will move that we approve resolution 347-24 recognizing Holly Huffman.
I second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Right, all in favor of approving this resolution? Oh, go ahead.
do we do it now or after the vote? But I just want to do it now that I very thankful of working with Holly, not only on the board, but other places as well. I think it's great that to bring diverse views to this board. And it is a very important and critical service for our citizens. And Holly, thank you for your contributions and your work on WTA.
Yes, I'm impressed with all that Holly does in general. Everything. All right, all in favor of approval of this resolution, please unmute and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, Holly.
And
Next,
can I respond to the resolution as well?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, yeah, it's unfortunate that we can't meet in person, but also having everybody's face in little boxes feels a little bit cozy and familiar since pretty much all 4 years on the board. This is how we did it as I've served on this board. And those are some tough 4 years. I was trying to think about like what's happened within that time. There's a lot. And I think my favorite task that we had as a team was I would say finding our new executive director, and we did a fantastic job at that. I'm really proud of that work for sure. And yeah, this board is so educational to be a part of. And I think it's, Skip had mentioned that he was interested in it at one point, and it's only fair to share the wealth so that Skip can also have this experience, which is a wonderful one. And yeah, so thank you to the leadership, the staff. WTA has an absolutely incredible staff, which makes being on this board really easy, frankly, because there's so much work that goes into preparing the information for us. And we can trust the work that's being done. And also thanks to the leadership of Michael being president, I think these 4 years as well. Also making this a really smooth and solid experience too. So I'm a little disappointed I don't get to experience Allie as a chair though. I think that will also be a great time. So Skip will have to fill me in on how that goes. But
And I will, if you'll consider sitting next to me on the dais.
oh no. We used to sit together. Now I've moved away because we have different responsibilities. But yeah, enjoy having Skip on the team. I'm sure that you will. But so yeah, thanks everybody. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Holly.
Thanks, Holly. And it will not be as smooth now. Just kidding. All right.
Great. The next resolution is 348 TAC 24, resolution of the WTA Board of Directors acknowledging the exemplary public service of Seth Fleetwood.
All right, looking for a motion.
I'd like to make the motion actually to accept resolution 34824.
I was second that.
Excellent. All right, any comments before we vote?
Well, I'll
Go ahead,
start.
Michael.
I would
Right,
speak
go ahead.
in favor of the motion. Seth, I won't try to embarrass you, but I really appreciate the fact that you've been supporting WTA, not just as mayor, not just as council member, but as county council member. And usually your comments are well chosen, but always forward thinking. The big view, the transformative view, what is going on in Whatcom County in the long term, that's exactly the kind of thinking this board needs, and you've always provided. So you've been a great board member. Thanks for serving with me.
Yeah, I would like to add the same that Seth, we appreciate your service. Thank you for your service, not only during the last 4 years, but previously also to our community and to this board. We'll miss you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of Resolution 348-24, recognizing Seth Fleetwood, please unmute and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good, that would be rude. Just kidding.
And if I may, we have, we would have given this in person. I don't know if people can see it or not. It's not showing up. Okay, but we do
If you
have.
take your face out of the view, then maybe it'll show it. No, never mind.
Nope, not doing for some reason, but there's a plaque here that traces WTA's history of buses back in 1891 up to the present, and it's a lithograph that has the pictures of. Oh, Maureen's going to see if she can get it on hers to see, but it traces the history of the buses, including electric cars and so forth, up to our electric bus now. Today, there we go. You know, you can see that.
Wow.
But it's pretty cool. So we'll get those to you, Seth and Holly, with sincere appreciation and gratitude for your leadership.
Maureen, could you chat so then we can see it on the big screen? I couldn't see it. You're on the little one, tiny one on the top.
How's that?
There we go.
All right.
Ah, cool.
Thank you.
All right, Seth, any words?
Just thank you. I can't see all of you together, the cozy picture that Holly mentioned, because I'm on my iPhone. When I turned my laptop in to the city, it would show everybody. So, but I'm visualizing all of you right now. Thank you for this recognition. I'm going to miss you all. I second all the good words of Holly. I started as a WTA member in my 30s, long time ago, before my hair turned white. And I think I've shared this before, but I don't know if Greg Hansen is still on the board. But his dad was the chair for a number of years of the WTA 20 years ago. And I was the youngster back then, bunch of older guys at the time. And now I'm the older guy, but back then I would go out on Wednesday nights, hump night, and have a good time, and then show up. I'd always come in a few minutes late to the WTA board meeting, which was in those days held at the county council chambers. And I just remember Greg's dad was always, you'd see he was a little impertinent and grumpy with me for coming in late. But anyway, I stopped doing that. I grew up. Yeah. Yesterday, I was reminded of the importance of the WTA. I had plans to have dinner with a friend at the Black Cat in Fairhaven. And the manager there called me up. We had reservations, and the manager there called me up and said, we're shutting down because no WTA. No WTA, no staff. And so just a reminder, a lot of people rely on it just for regular commerce in Bellingham. As I've said many times over the years, this is just a remarkably well-run organization. Just highly, highly competent. I've been impressed with the way it's operated from the very beginning. Richard Walsh was the director back in those days, and as Holly referenced, that was one of the great decisions we made in the last several years was hiring you, Les. You continue the legacy of excellence. So, yeah, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sad that you guys are leaving, but I'm excited to get to know new people. Thanks,
Yeah.
Seth.
Thank you.
All right, next up is citizen communication. Do we have any citizen communication today?
Vicki, did you get anything in last night?
No, I didn't.
And we have no written communication.
Okay, and is there anyone present who would like to unmute and speak to the board? I'm not seeing anybody. All right, that was easy. Next up, we have some board action. F1 is consideration of approval of phase 2 of the rapid transit study.
Tim? Yes, I'll go ahead and kick this off. Yeah, so we are seeking approval of the task order for phase 2 of the rapid transit study, as well as an increase in the authority for the Transpro Group contract. And I just kind of want to provide some context before I hand it over to Michael, who's going to do a short presentation on this item. But did want to just mention that this is a continuation of our work from last year. We completed the phase 1, which was a high-level look at the feasibility of rapid transit. I also wanted to mention that this doesn't really bind us yet to any specific project. It's still in the study phase, but we did want to continue the work and engage in basically 2 parts for this next phase. One is a community conversation around this idea of a rapid transit system. And then the second part is doing some more detailed design work for the project, and eventually getting to sort of a board and Bellingham City Council approval of what's called a locally preferred alternative. So just to provide a little context, and with that, I'll hand it over to Michael.
Thank you, Tim. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Got a little presentation prepared. And if I could get a audible that my screen is showing, that'd be great, because I can't see y'all now.
Yes, it is.
Awesome. Yeah, so as Tim mentioned, we're looking for approval to work with Transpo Group on the phase 2 of the rapid transit study. So just as a way of background, and I know Tim went through this, but yeah, phase 1 was completed at the end of 2022. That was developed with Transpo. So it's great to have the same group on our side, because they're very familiar with our system now, and all of the aspects that go into rapid transit, and familiar with the corridors as well. So that's really good to have the same consultant working on that. Phase 1, as mentioned, we looked at 2 different corridors. We looked at the Gold Line, and then a combination of the green and the blue line, serving from Cordata through Western up to Lincoln and Lakeway. And we found that both corridors were suitable environments for BRT improvements. And that's based on potential ridership, multimodal accessibility and connectivity, and then existing and future land use conditions. And then finally, potential time savings. So improvements along the corridor that could allow buses to move through there more easily. So the purpose of this phase 2 is 1, to more fully evaluate the rapid transit corridors and engage with residents, local organizations, and key stakeholders to understand the community's values and visions around BRT and enhanced transit services. So a lot of this is working with the city, Western, on these core partnerships that we will need to make a successful implementation of any sort of rapid transit improvements. The second, as Tim mentioned, is to select a locally preferred alternative. That will be selected by the board of directors and Bellingham City Council. So this component is a core requirement of the federal BRT funding eligibility. So we're looking at the FTA Capital Investments Program, Small Starts. So if we do decide to move forward, that's a great source of funding for these larger transit improvement projects. So just to go through the scope a little bit, it's going to include stakeholder and public engagement. So seeking buy-in from residents, businesses, and partners, and developing city partnership, as I just mentioned, because we won't be able to make this happen without the owners of the right-of-way. Corridor analysis. So phase 1 did a pretty deep analysis of the 2 different corridors, but this will build on that and include travel time savings. The analysis will also assess the potential benefits of BRT improvements. And then we have the development of the locally preferred alternative. So utilizing the input from all of the public and stakeholder engagement, and the corridor analysis results to develop a preliminary and final LPA. And then initial environmental analysis. So we'll do an environmental scan, which will help identify any immediate, some of those larger barriers to the successful implementation of rapid transit. So if there's anything that strikes us right off the bat, you know, be able to identify those early in the process. And then 15% design and cost estimate. So these items will really help the leaders at WTA and our partners envision what this might look like on the streets of Bellingham. And then WTA board and city approval of the LPA. So with the help of Transpo presenting all of these options and these analyses to the city council and our board, you guys, and approval through this process, as I mentioned, is huge for the FTA grant process.
So Michael,
Yeah.
quick question on the scope. I guess one of the things I would like to see in the future is how much ridership could potentially increase through doing programs like this. Can that be included in the scope?
Yes, so that is part of that corridor analysis. So for phase one, we did a rough estimate using a transit modeling program, but this will include the next level. So the one that is utilized by the FTA.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Satpal, you unmuted. Do you have something?
No.
Yes, no.
Awesome. So the staff recommendation is that the board of directors authorize the general manager to sign a task order for Transpo Group for the second phase of the rapid transit study, coming in at $350,000 and increase the overall contract amount to a maximum of $1,100,000.
All right. If you have your hand up, I can't see you. Go ahead and speak if you have anything.
And go ahead. Sorry.
Nope, go ahead.
Can I stop sharing so I can see faces?
Yes.
Well, that being said, to get this on the floor, I'll move that we authorize the general manager to sign a task order to Transpo Group for phase 2 of the rapid transit study.
I'll second it.
All right, with a motion and a second.
I have a quick question. What do we get with the 15% design estimate?
So the 15% design is separate from the cost estimate. So it will go in and we'll get renderings and drawings. And Tim, if you have anything else to add on this, we will have renderings of some of the improvements that we'll see at the street level. So go and do a deep analysis, see where we can make those time-saving improvements, and looking at corridor level. So these projects include a lot of infrastructure improvements where the stations are. So kind of those sort of details within that.
Yeah, and I'd say we can share with you if you're curious about the specific details of the design, but it is those kinds of things where you go into the right of way and identify, you know, what opportunities are the right of way widths, for example, where you may have barriers to making improvements, looking at the intersections and our transit signal priority, those sorts of things. So ultimately it's a conceptual rendering based on the improvements that you're proposing. It's not a 30% engineering design, but it's halfway there. So it will hopefully provide us enough information for the board to be able to weigh in on a LPA.
Looks like Shonda has something to add.
Thanks, Ally. I just wanted to add, we'll also need a motion to approve the contract authority and increase that up to the 1.1 million.
I think that was part of the motion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, Mayor Lund.
Yeah, I just had a question. If the corridor analysis was going to take a look at all about some of the transit-oriented design legislation that's being considered in Olympia, and if that will avail Bellingham to utilize, will qualify us to access more tools to create housing in Bellingham. Is that part of the corridor analysis or not?
Yes, it's an aspect of the corridor analysis. I would say it definitely puts WTA at the center of this legislation if we go forward with the rapid transit project, because then we could qualify the Bellingham community for that TOD legislation. So it's only upon implementation of the system. So we're well aware of that. But separately, through beyond just the legislation, we're working with your staff, Maryland, within the comp plan update and identifying opportunity to support a rapid transit system. You know, where is their current support? Where would there be future support for this kind of system? So we're looking at both those things, both the legislation as well as what's currently in place.
Thank you, Tim.
Further discussion? Okay, with a motion and a second, all in favor of approval of phase 2 rapid transit study and increasing the authority for the contract, please unmute and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Excellent. Motion passes. Okay, F2, consideration of disposition of surplus property. And is this you, Les?
Yeah, myself and Mark Lee, who was instrumental in helping with this. The next 3 items are all kind of related to the Linden Station development and the opportunity to combine transit and affordable workforce housing at that station. Mark, I kindly identified that we needed to have this policy adopted on public benefit purpose and declaring. So there's the rules we need to do for this outline in the policy, including setting a public hearing, which is then the next item for board consideration. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mark for the highlights of the policy, please. And thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Les. First of all, good morning. Nice to meet you, Mayor Lund and Council Member Williams. Sorry it's not in person. What caused the need for these rules is RCW 39.33.015, which is a fairly new statute that allows municipalities to dispose of their surplus property for use for affordable housing. And under the statute, it requires that the municipality have a set of rules to go through that process. And so we have developed this set of rules to identify the procedures that WTA will follow to A, identify the existence of surplus property, and B, how that may be disposed of, not necessarily for use as affordable housing, but if WTA would like to sell the property, the procedures will be there for that as well. So it's just a general set of guidelines for moving forward through that process.
All right, Todd.
I couldn't find my unmute. Yeah, so does the statute or does it define affordable housing in terms of a particular percentage of median income, or is it limited equity models? So
yes, it does. The statute, well, this is where it gets a little interesting because we're operating under 2 separate set of guidelines. One is this statute and one are FTA guidelines, because FTA guidelines have to be followed in order to avoid the need to repay funding from FTA for the acquisition or development of property that is sold for or disposed of for affordable housing. But under the statute, affordable housing is defined as housing that's rented at a rate of 30% of the household's monthly income for rent and utilities.
I guess this relates to how the RFQ, I'm just curious, when the RFQ goes out, how will it define? So that's how affordable housing will be defined when the request goes out.
Well, currently we're working on the RFQ, and the RFQ identifies, again, this is where it gets a little quirky. The FTA's definition of affordable housing is a little bit different. It's based on a percentage of units available based upon a median income in the community. When we've looked at this, although the definitions are different, they are not in conflict. So the RFQ will contain an explanation that the housing has to meet both of these particular guidelines in order for the proposer to be in a position to be chosen.
Thanks.
All right, anyone else? Comments or questions?
Yeah, I know this is being put in primarily for what we're doing there in Linden, but I just kind of want a little more verification. Can you define the scope of public benefit a little bit more? Because F2 says public benefit like affordable housing, for example, but public benefit is pretty vague, and one could argue that giving property to a developer to put in a widgets factory would be for the public benefit because it brings in jobs and that kind of things. Also, the disposition of the property, for example, Linden, who would, or really any property, who would potentially be getting the property? Would it be that municipality, or would it be Habitat for Humanity or whoever the nonprofit is that's working that? How are the kind of the details of that? Because maybe in Scott's case in Linden, they're all for whatever we're doing here, but this is something that is broader than this. This now affects every municipality potentially that WTA owns anything of, and I just want to make sure that the people of each municipality are protected, as well as the governing boards have some say over what happens in their area. So could you go into that a little bit for us?
Well, I'd like to start by answering that question by stating that right now, all we're looking at are the rules to be followed to consider whether a property should be identified as surplus. Right now, we're not really talking about or making any decisions about what may or may not happen with Linden. First, we have to go through this process of identifying it as surplus and then move through that process. We are also contemporaneously preparing a proposed RFQ for the board to review in the future. And in that, that gets to your question about what is a public benefit. Under the statute, and let me take one step back. Traditionally, under the Constitution and the statutes that are in place, WTA may not give away its property. It can, if it leases its property or it sells its property, it has to get fair market value. This statute creates the only exception to that requirement. But in disposing of the property, it has to be used for what is identified in the statute as a quote public benefit. And the only public benefit, the only use that fits within that definition is for affordable housing and related facilities that support the goals of affordable housing development in providing economic and social stability for low-income persons. So it would not be available to sell to someone who's making widgets. It can only be used for affordable housing and resources associated with affordable housing, like daycare facilities and things like that. Otherwise, WTA would have to obtain fair market value for either the rental or the sale of the property. But again, right now, we're not talking about the particulars of what may or may not happen in Linden. We're just talking about the rules that the WTA needs to adopt in order to move through this process and have those discussions. So Eric, I hope that answered your question.
Paul?
I had a similar question, Mark, that what happens is in similar case, what you described is a second step. I give it to John, and John has a genuine way of building apartments for low income housing and everything, and project doesn't work out, and 5 years later, John goes and sells to somebody else. Or what is John's obligation to the previous covenant or agreement? I personally felt before also that if there is a way that this stays in some kind of public ownership of sorts and give a lot of authority leeway. I think biggest thing the people who want to buy is can they leverage that property to borrow money? Otherwise, the ground doesn't help them in any other way than take the weight of the building. The biggest thing they need is do they have ability to borrow or use it as a collateral? I personally believe if there is a mechanism, and I'm not sure if there is one, that there is some way that either the property gets returned back to, the first option is to the municipality.
Yeah.
Let me interrupt you there.
Sure.
First step, Paul, this statute is creating a very complicated process with really not very many guidelines. It's going to be kind of an interesting process, but one thing that the statute does say is that the property has to be used for this public benefit. If it doesn't, then it has to go back to the public entity. So what we're proposing currently, and of course this will be a board decision, is if this property is identified as surplus, that we would enter a ground lease with a potential partner to do the affordable housing, and contained within that lease will be an absolute obligation that the property be used for the public benefit, affordable housing, in compliance with the statutory definitions and the FTA definition. And if that stops happening, then WTA gets the property back, and of course that creates its own complexity. What happens if you get this back with all the improvements?
I know that.
As I said, it's a very complicated.
So there are other, we've talked to other nonprofits about it, and they would step in and take it. So there's a market out there that if whatever the nonprofit that we ground lease to, while preserving a transit component to it, can't operate it anymore, there are others that do step in. And so we do have ways of and mechanisms of protecting WTA and the public.
Michael?
Yeah, it may be helpful to know the city of Bellingham has basically followed this exact procedure and surplus property for affordable housing. It works pretty well. I think the most important thing is we need to be open to either doing a ground lease or an outright sale. The reason being is that the housing development entity needs to be able to show control of the property in order to be eligible for their own funding. And all this is taken care of in the purchase and sale agreement. All the obligations that exist under the statutes are spelled out. So there's an opportunity for all these protections and requirements to be included at time of sale or at time of lease.
Eric?
Yeah, in response to that, if the property were to be sold, then you would just record covenants against the property requiring them to be used for an affordable housing. If it's not, then it goes back to the public entity. Eric? You're muted.
Sorry about that. Why if the term public benefit, if it's only affordable housing, why do we have the term public benefit? Why don't we just have affordable housing in the resolution?
You'll have to, because that's what the state legislature did. That's how they defined it.
Okay, awesome.
I think
that's in the weeds, but just curious.
Well, I think the point of that is to identify not just affordable housing, but other services associated with affordable housing. So it's a little bit broader than just affordable housing.
All right, anyone else? How about a motion?
Yeah, just a slight comment on what Mark just said. And I think the last three, if not the last four affordable housing projects that when Bellingham helps get going in the city limits, childcare is included in the building.
All right, would anyone like to make a motion?
I move to, I'm looking at the agenda item, approve the resolution considering this disposition of surplus property as a public beneficial use.
I'll
Second.
second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adopting 349-24, please unmute and say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, that passes. Thank you. Good discussion, everyone. All right, item F3 is,
Yeah. This one is just setting the, now that we've adopted the rules, setting the public hearing as required under the rules for February 15th.
I move to set the public hearing for February 15th.
Second.
all right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor of setting the public hearing for February 15th, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving right along.
All right.
F4 is consideration of issuing an RFQ.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm going to try to share my screen. Can people see that okay?
Yep.
Yep, good. Let's see if I can get it to play. Hopefully you can see that in presentation mode. Okay. So the purpose of this is to authorize us to go out for a request for qualifications, looking for the best, most qualified team as defined by their legal, their technical, and their financial capabilities to do a project of mixed affordable housing plus the transit component. The theory of the case is that studies have shown and other examples have shown that combining transit and housing helps the community to increase the housing supply, but also at the same time helping transit as well to increase ridership because you have people living right where transit is located. So the board back in July, the board okayed, we reviewed the needs assessment and then the board okayed moving forward with a feasibility study. So we'll talk a little bit about that and seek board authorization to, we'll talk about the timeline and then release the RFQ. So just a reminder on our mission, we're trying to connect people to opportunities and provide value through the community. And as mentioned, we think our theory of the case is that this will help both. So this is just as background, this is where the property is located. If you go up the guide meridian and turn right on Front Street and come through on 19th and Front, you'll see where the property is. It is two parcels technically, both owned by WTA that combine for about 3.5 acres.
Hey, Les.
Yes.
You're not in presentation mode, just so you know that.
And we're on the first screen as well.
Okay. Let's see. Let me see if I can do it this way. Can you see that?
There you go.
Okay. All right. So I'll do
You're
it.
still not in presentation mode.
Okay. Thank you. This was my nightmare all night.
The little button at the, there you go.
Did that get to it?
Not yet.
Try it again.
Let's see. Okay, let me try slideshow wave. Well, are you okay if I just do it this way? Can you see the slide at least?
Just make it a little bit bigger with the slider bar.
Yeah, I sure can. Let's see, okay. Okay, it's my,
Lower right, if
Yeah, you could
Yeah,
increase
my-
the percentage.
yeah, I'm trying to get my, oh, I think Josh took it over. Thank God. Sorry. Josh, can you make the slide bigger at least and we can, thank you. Okay, so we'll go, can you see that now with the parcels? I apologize for my technical incompetence. So this shows you where it's located. So the intent behind this is, as we discussed, to enable this to allow increased housing, to increase transit ridership, make it easier for folks, more convenient for transit ridership, and then hopefully also from an environmental standpoint converts more drive alone trips to bus trips because it's easier for folks to use. As we have a couple new members, but we did a needs assessment to see what would be needed out there in Linden, and what we came back with was that there is a need for affordable workforce housing, particularly in the agricultural worker area. That there was need for easier access to these services such as food banks, childcare, and maybe a farm worker center, those kinds of things. And then also the location of it, the needs assessment showed was well suited because it was near grocery stores, shopping, employment opportunities, and those kinds of things. And you can see on the slide the folks that we talked to in developing that needs assessment. And it was, I would say, unanimous across that people thought there was a need. So in July, then we came to the board and said we'd like to move into a feasibility study. We hired RMC architects. Big shout out to Jeff McClure and Kelsey Gates from RMC Architects. And then also to City of Linden Mayor and Heidi, their planning director, who helped RMC do this feasibility study. Bottom line was that they found that it was feasible to do this. They thought that you could combine both the transit and the affordable workforce housing on that 3.5 acres. They thought you could get up to 110 to 120 units of a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. They did believe that there would likely be in 2 stages, mainly to make sure that the absorption rate was going okay. And that the things were working okay, and then you'd move into a second phase of another 50, 60 houses at that stage, and then see how it was working. Is there a need for other types of housing in that second phase, such as elder housing or something of that nature as well? So that preserves some flexibility for the nonprofits that would be working forward. Then that the site can include to meet the zoning requirements and have these various services in there. As part of this, we also checked geotech, environmental, stormwater, those kinds of things to make sure the site was constructible to move forward, and all came back good. So RMC did very conceptual designs of what the 2 phases could look like. These are really just massing studies to see what it would look like to meet parking and other zoning requirements, and what it would look like. What you see here is the parking this area. If you can see along Front Street, hopefully my cursor is showing where that is. That could be the like a farm work center, childcare, those kinds of things, with the commercial spaces to meet the zoning requirements, and then a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments, including potential 2-story, 3 bedrooms could be 2-story townhouses. Maximum height is 4 stories on that. So that's what the first phase could look like. And then second phase really is putting it in down in this area. And then it also checked parking to make sure that that could work on that end. So it can. So that's kind of what it would look like. The timeline, there are multiple board touch points moving ahead in addition to today. Obviously the public hearing, and then we would issue that in February, review the submittals and interviews in April. May, we would come back to the board, which would be another touch point to recommend a selected developer. Then launch into ground lease negotiations. We have truth checked the ground lease with various entities that would be doing this, and they felt this is doable. Negotiate the term sheet, potentially bring that back to the board in July or August for another touch point, and then the ultimate approval of the lease in Q4 with the goal of signing it and turning the property over to them in time for them to meet their funding timelines in 25. There is Grants Burgers is on there. Their lease goes through April of 25. This times with that because then obviously a successful bidder would then have to go into permitting and design and, you know, all those phases. So that works well. So with that, the recommendation would be to authorize us to issue the request for qualifications, which we would do, and then obviously bring back to the board a recommended. And this would also include that it's subject to the public hearing being approved. So if something didn't work well in the public hearing, we don't have to award to anybody. So it preserves that decision space. So with that, I'll stand by for questions.
All right. Do you want to stop sharing so we can see everyone? Maybe.
Yes, I would love to do that. There we go. Hey, I can stop share. I just can't share.
All right. Questions, comments? Motion? Oh, Todd, go ahead. And then
So does the Grants Burgers space go away?
It would probably be beneficially reused, but that would be up to the ultimate partner on how to reuse that.
I just was curious about the commercial space. How much is it 20% of the space is used for commercial or something like that?
Yes, that's the zoning requirement on it. It could be multiple things for commercial. It doesn't have to be a business. It can be childcare. It can be a number of different things.
Okay. Maryland?
To my untrained, uneducated eye, it looked like a lot of parking is being allocated at that space at a transit center. Can you speak to the parking requirements?
Yeah, that's the so it's based on City of Linden zoning requirements. And so that's where it comes out is based on that. I can get you, I don't recall off the top of my head the exact zoning requirements per each unit, but it's based on bedrooms.
Is there any options for variance?
I don't know enough. We haven't talked enough about that. That's City of Linden jurisdiction. So we're complying with the zoning codes there. And they've been, Heidi has been wonderful, their planning director to work with coming up with ideas to enable this to occur.
Michael, and then Satpal.
To support what Kim just said, in the city of Bellingham, it's not a variance, it's an administrative waiver for the parking requirements with a showing that the amount of statutorily required parking is unnecessary. And so we have given those waivers, you know, some kind of a reduction in the amount of parking. And yeah, as Tim points out, this is adjacent to a transit center. So Scott, I would just say you might want to look into creating such administrative waivers in your code.
Scott's gone.
Oh, Well, let's ask Scott.
I just wanted to add to that was that parking is not only for the apartments or for the commercial space. The parking is for the transit people because the transit station is there.
No, I don't think that's right. I think this is all for the
I think
development.
all space is used for parking right now. So there is a minimum requirement for number of buses coming in and everything, and there will be people who do not live there. It is for the residents to come and it will be like a park and ride. That's what it is right now. So it is, well, Scott is the right person to answer the question, but that's what I thought that parking is for, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of it's driven by zoning code based on parking per bedroom. But there are some shared spaces that would be there for transit to enable folks to work on that too.
Chair Hawkinson, may I speak?
Yes, go ahead.
Board Member Cortés put in the chat that he had to go to another meeting, but he is in favor of this item. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, would anyone like to make a motion?
I move to approve this issuance of RFQ for the Linden Station property.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Excellent. Motion passes. Item G is the consent agenda. How about a motion on that?
Move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second for the consent agenda. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed?
One
All right.
abstention.
Oh, all right. Item H, reports to the board.
Yeah, I noticed that we're a few minutes after 9. The annual IT cybersecurity update and the agency work plan we can definitely push off to next month when we have 2 board meetings. What the hope was is that the evaluation standards, we could talk about them today and then bring them to the board for adoption in February. Tim, if we were to slide this, do the presentation first meeting and then potentially adoption second meeting in February, would that work?
Yeah, that would work. I will not be here the first meeting in February, but I think it can go forward without my presence. So that's acceptable to me. And Michael, I'd check in with you just to see if that works.
Yeah, that works for me as well. I'll be around through February, so I'll be able to present all of that. And yeah. Okay.
So, Allie, if it's
Can I
okay,
make a request that the board review the memo and I have a link in the memo that it links to the story map that goes through all of the measures in detail.
Sounds good.
Michael, were there 2 story maps? I saw 2 links.
I do not believe so. Here, let me look at the memo or the item real quick.
I can address that, Michael. One was the evaluation standards that you saw last year. So it's the overall approach to these objective metrics. And the more recent one is the performance metrics, which is a component of the evaluation metrics. So hopefully that doesn't confuse people too much, but one gives the overall background. The other is more specifically what we're going to be talking about here in February.
And I will send the performance measures in the chat right now, so you can open that and save it on your tabs.
Thank you. All right, then.
If that's okay with you, Allie, we'll do that on the board.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Moving on. All right. Any other business? Announcements? All right. We will adjourn. Thanks, everyone.